Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is Majitog Fears Wealth the 28th. My name is Adam, and I'm going to give you my review today of The Lioness by Nancy Varian Berberick. Now, I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga YouTube members and Patreon patrons and invite you to consider becoming a member or patron. You can also pick up Dragonlance Media or get $10 signing up to start playing .games using my affiliate links. All of that's in the description below. Of course, this is my perspective only, so if yours differs, that's okay. Share your thoughts in the live chat, or if you're watching this after the fact, put them in the comments. We'll have a little bit of a back and forth about the book. All right, so it looks like I got a bunch of notes here in chat, so I will get to those afterward. But the way these work is I give you a pre-written review that I basically break every book down into 3 sections. Usually by around 100 pages or so. And so I read those, I write down my review, and then do the same thing the next day and the next. This one is very much the same, and so you're going to get a sort of an evolution of understanding about the book and thoughts about the book throughout the course of this, as you always get with these reviews. So let me know, again, if your thoughts are in line or differ. Let's get into it. So I'm trying to reconcile the Carrie-Anne Soray that we met in so many other short stories and novels with this one. They are quite different. In past tales, she was of a mind of her own, secretive, powerful, and knowledgeable. This version of the character has forgotten her Kagonesti ways. She's grown complacent and comfortable with the city life of Qualinesti as Gilthanas' consort and the servant of Senator Rosh's. It's hard to read about her ignorance and forgetfulness of her Kagonesti ways, but on the other hand, it's refreshing that she's not an uber-powerful force just cleaving through everything. That she can fail, and that she must learn. I just had to get that out of the way because I'm enjoying the novel quite a bit. I'm just trying to reconcile the character that I'm being presented with versus what I've already known. So we start the story in Qualinesti and get a glimpse of what life is like for Gilthanas. His father, Tanis Half-Elven, is dead. His mother, Lorelanthalassa, the Queen Mother, is secretly still trying to work out an alliance with the peoples of Krynn. Senator Rosh's is his slimy old self, working with the Dark Knights to ensure his own gain at the cost of his nation. They're all headed to a celebration as they pass the southern road and find many elven heads on sticks. One is a cousin of Carrian's, which makes her remember her brother, Idahar, who formerly worked with Porthios' rebel group in the Chaos War. She feels a sense of urgency to find him and help him if he's in trouble. Clearly, Gilthas doesn't want her to go, but what can he do? We're introduced to a band of Dark Knights led by Sir Chance Geralt, who has taken direct orders from Skull Knight Lord Emmett Thagol. He's known as the Dreamwalker and sends his thoughts and directives directly into the minds of his knights. He demands the heads of the elven rebels and has his knights kill them when they step out of line. He's clearly the big bad guy of the novel and is presented as a terrifying threat. In this time, the Dark Knights have total control of Qualinesti at the behest of Beryl, the Green Dragon Overlord. And I do want to make a quick note here about Sir Chance Geralt. They set him up as if he's going to be an important character, and then they completely sideline him and, in my opinion, at the very end, completely eliminate him without any fuss or muss, without any real after or forethought. He's basically ends up just being like another Dark Knight. But then why did you spend the time at the beginning of the novel developing his personality and the personality of the troop that he's with if you're just going to treat them like fodder? Just write them like fodder. That way we don't start to get invested in what we believe is going to be an interesting character, only to find out that they're literally nothing. So Carrion heads to an inn she suspects her brother will frequent and comes across knights on the road. She runs into the woods, which look and feel foreign to her, as if there's some strange magic at work in them. This is believed to be cause of Kagonesti by most people, but it's also inferred that it is Lord Thagol's doing. So at this point, I'm not entirely sure. And I have to say another quick note. After having finished the novel, I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure why the forest was the way it was. I mean, I'm guessing it's because of Lord Thagol, but I don't feel like there was ever a resolution with that. This book jumps around so much between time, between places, and between characters and events that you never really get any solid understanding of what's happening in any given moment at all. And so it's really aggravating that there's this huge backdrop about this mysterious thing that's ailing the woods, and we never really get a solid resolution about it. She meets a dwarf who is also hiding off the road, a Hylar named Stanok Hammerfell. The first thing you realize is that tensions are high everywhere outside Qualinesti, so everyone is distrustful, curt, and oftentimes outright rude. They travel to the inn together, and as she enters, everyone turns to look at her. She is a Kagonesti, and like I said, many blame them for the strangeness in the forest. This is something that doesn't make any sense to me at all. We are in a time where the green dragon overlord Beryl is in total control of Qualinesti. The entire forest. Total control. She has dark knights doing her bidding. They've seized the capital under their total control with dark knights. Why are they blaming the slave class, the servant class, for something going on weird in the woods? Why aren't they blaming Beryl since she's the one in control of everything? It doesn't make any sense at all. So an interesting point of note is that we get a glimpse into Carrion's history with her brother in southern Ergoth, and how a Qualinesti slaver ship frequently caught and sold to Kagonesti in Qualinesti. She and her brother eventually were caught as well, and this reinforces the animosity between the elves and showcases to the reader that there is no such thing as true good guys in Dragonlance. The elves are the creation of Paladine, the god of good, and yet they are slavers. De facto evil actions. So while she is eating, dark knights enter with another Kagonesti woman, beaten and clearly abused. Carrion is given a knife by Stanok and kills one of the dark knights, running off with the Kagonesti woman. They race into the forest, evading the dark knights, and she's eventually led by the woman named Ayensha to a secret hideout of wild runners, rebels, and outlaws. In Qualinesti, Gilthanas is informed by people from the inn about what Carrion did, and that Lord Thagel has ordered her found and beheaded. The Dark Knights end up burning down the inn and many other establishments, putting many to the sword in the process. As the informants return to find the inn with a token from Gilthanas for Carrion, they find Aidahar. The Kagonesti he is with kills 2 elves for their rudeness against his wishes, and returns to his hideout, which is exactly where Carrion is. Carrion discovers that Aidahar and Ayensha are married. She stays with them for 2 weeks and is finally given the token from Gilthaz, but decides to stay longer. From this point, the story does an odd time jump sequence. She stays months with Jerat, but Aidahar and the rest of the outlaws leave. Her brother, Aidahar, which is what spawned her going to search for this in the first place, wants nothing to do with her and literally does not show up again until the very, 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 very end of the novel. So if you're looking for some sort of like family reunion story or anything like that, it's not here. He doesn't give an F about her at all. And he lets that be known. And it's strange. It's very, very strange. So she stays with Jerat, but Aidahar and the rest of the outlaws leave. They try to play it off as if Jerat is teaching her Kagonesti ways, but he isn't a Kagonesti, so it comes off as awkward and forced. At one point, he's teaching her to make a bow and arrow, saying that it's more effective if you make it yourself, which is patently false, especially if you've never done it before. You may be more comfortable with it, but that's not inherently more powerful or true or a shot. She stays with him until they run across a boy and his dog who is fleeing the Dark Knights. Jerat wants to kill the boy because he could lead the Dark Knights to them for a reward, but Carrion refuses. I do, at this point, want to reinforce the idea. These are all elves, actively trying to murder or outright killing each other constantly. Meanwhile, there is an occupying force of Dark Knights that they could turn their ire against, and instead, they're just murdering each other. It doesn't make any sense. The whole thing is ridiculous. So this endeavor, this endears the boy named Ander to her, and he eventually joins the trio. More time passes, and they go to a farm and endear themselves to the owners of the farm. They get food and bring them aboard her hit-and-run crew. She spends time building a team called the Night People, where she has a target, she activates them, they make the assault on the Dark Knights, then everyone else returns to their lives. They are wildly effective and harry the Dark Knights constantly. Eventually, they have the farmer act as a turncoat to supposedly turn in Carrion to Lord Thagol, but he ends up killing the elf. They go to capture her and walk into an ambush. Only Thagol lives through the ambush, and he goes into hiding in his own region of the forest for a while. Another note that we have to mention here, Thagol knows it's a trap, or at least he overtly says that he knows it's a trap in the actual book. So then why does he go through with it without extra soldiers or the anticipation of foiling a trap? Again, it makes no sense. Carrion visits the King Gilthaz and they spend time together before she returns to the hit-and-run war she's driving. They meet up with the outlaws. It's clear the Elder is building up Carrion as a leader of this army for the king. And there's a whole lot said about the importance or the power or the wisdom of this Elder, but we never learn anything about her. She's just an old elf, and that's all we ever get. No one knows her actual name, and so they actually just call her an elder. But she's incredibly powerful with magic in a time when no one is powerful with magic. They actively say that magic is failing even in magic items. So why is she consistently able to do what literally no one else can do? I don't know. So there's a lot of time passing in the third act. Carrion meets up with Gilthaz again and is asked to go to Thorbarden to work on the alliance between the elves and the dwarves. She agrees and is given a magic necklace that will transport her. I do want to point out, this book started saying that Laura Lanthalassa was making the connections, and then she just abruptly stops, and it's no longer her doing it. It is now Carrion doing it. Which is weird, because if anyone has the pull to bring together two nations, it would be the Golden General, not some rando Kagonesti woman. But I didn't write the story. So she thinks of Stanok Hammerfell and teleports to his inn. She asks him to take her before the Thane to discuss the treaty and ask for help. Of course, we all know it is going to create a tunnel with which will allow elves to escape Qualinesti through, but they never mention the specifics of what the help entails. He reluctantly agrees, and she waits outside the council chamber. She's met there by the king, Tarn Bellowgranite, and they talk for a little while before going in to face the council. All the dwarven thanes are against her request for alliance and aid, but they continue arguing the point. They ask her to leave and they continue deliberations. The king tells her afterward that only the Hylar dwarves are still refusing and wants Stanok to travel with her to see Gilthaz and make his recommendation. Stanok agrees and they use the magic to leave. It's been 2 weeks that she was gone, and in those 2 weeks, Thagol has not only returned, but he's devastated the elves. Jarrat is gaunt, many have been killed or are missing, and the night people are entirely scattered. Carrion makes plans for ambush for Thagol again, luring him in hit-and-run tactics, but he sees into her mind with his magic and turns the ambush into a rout. He devastated her numbers, and she fled with a few survivors. They made plans to draw him in again, and more elves began rallying to her cause. They began calling her the Lioness, and even Stanok was proud to fight by her side. Weeks later, they lure Thagol in, and everybody, even Idahar's band and the Eldar in the form of a giant elemental beast, came to fight. They suffered greatly on both sides, but ultimately the Lioness prevailed, beheading Thagol. Idahar, her brother, died in battle, and she mourned him with his wife. The Lioness brought Stanok to meet Gilthaz, and he left to return to Thorbarden. They're sure that he will agree to help the elves. Gilthaz makes an impassioned plea for Carrion to marry him, and they do so in secret. The story jumped all over the place throughout the story, and it also featured some strange phrases in writing. It made it very difficult to understand as I read it, forcing me to slow down and reread sections to make sure I understood them. Ultimately, I enjoyed seeing the progression from Carrion's character into the Lioness, and I liked that they had an enemy to defeat other than the occupying Dark Knights of Qualinesti, but it was odd that they were never, ever mentioned in Qualinesti. Like, we know that there's actually Dark Knights, that, like, one of them, the leader, is actually falling in love with Laura Lanthalassa. But that's never once mentioned, that the Dark Knights are occupying Qualinesti. So it's very, very strange. But I do have to say, if you are a fan of the Age of Mortals, or if you're a fan of elves, you should probably give this a read. I don't consider it mandatory, but it does give some background information to the character and some explanation about how the treaty was brought about, though you will not glean any interesting information at all. It starts in a very strange place, it ends in a very strange place, and I do not feel like it actually endeared me any more to the Lioness than I had already been, based on her actions in the Dragons of Summer Flame and the Elven Exiles trilogy, and like the elves in the War of Souls and stuff. It's just extra background for background's sake. But anyway, those are my thoughts. So, Chris, thanks for tuning in and giving me so much to reflect on here. You love this era of Dragonlance. It's a darker tone than most Dragonlance. There were some brutal battles in this, which you enjoyed. Yeah, there were some interesting battles and some real brutality shown throughout. Since Tanis is your favorite character, you enjoy picturing his influence whenever Gilthaz is in a scene. Yeah, it's just unfortunate he only had any sort of influence after the fact. Gilthaz was just kind of a dick when Tanis was around. Gilthaz has his father's cleverness and ability to problem solve, but also his passion for his outlaw. I don't know, you could make that same argument about Laurana. Obviously, the knights mistreated the Qualinesti, but they were also in a tough spot, having to obey and give tribute to Beryl. They didn't have to. They chose to. And they made that reinforced idea over and over and over again, either from other elves or from dwarves even. And it's true. Like, they pacified the Dark Knights, and they did not have to. Like many Dragonlance books that aren't from Weiss or Hickman, Pearson, and a few others, you felt this book could have been 100 pages less and just as effective. I tend to agree, only because Nancy Varian Berberick is really great with her short stories. This, I felt like we were just bouncing around constantly. When we did stop in one place, we didn't really learn anything. It was only through reflections after the fact that we actually get information. And yeah, I think you could have cut it down to 100 pages less, but then it wouldn't have been a novel. It would have been like a novella, and they wouldn't have published it like this. So I think they just kept it padded for that reason. You enjoyed all the scenes with the Lioness's brother, as both siblings were three-dimensional and had strong points of view. See, and I'm of the opposite opinion on this particular point. Idahar was totally one-dimensional. He was fervently working against Dark Knights, and to all exclusions, even his own sister. He didn't care about her. He didn't care about the movement that the king was actively trying to subvert and free the people from the Dark Knight rule. Like, he didn't care about any of that. He only did his own thing. He cared about his own thing, and he said, F everyone else. That is not three-dimensional to me. That was frustrating to me. You've always loved it when dwarves and elves unite. It must be the whole Gimli-Legolas friendship that ingrained it in you. Yeah, the dwarves are frustrating in this, because when she is talking at the Council of Thanes, they are all actively against her. Cut to a couple hours later, they're all with her, except for the Hylar. And the Hylar are the ones that are universally more accepting. So that was strange. Why would the Duergar and the Deregar, they were with her and helping the elves? They're actively working with Dark Knights in a lot of places. So it made no sense that all the other dwarves were all behind her to help the elves, but not the Hylar. I just didn't understand that at all. The book made you want a united Elven nation story to be written about future reunification for all Elven factions that you brought up in another stream. It would be interesting. The closest we got to that is the Elven Exiles trilogy, where even Porthios goes to the aid of Gilthaz and the Lioness and everyone. So we kind of get that, but we never really see a satisfying end to the elves, you know? The wedding at the end made you tear up thinking about Tanis not being there or any of Laurana's friends or family. So much sadness in the Fifth Age that these two people still chose love. Wow, yeah, I didn't reflect on it that way. By the time we got to the wedding, I was just racking my brain trying to remember if they were married in the other books, because I didn't remember them being married at all. Like at all. And so I was sitting here trying to figure that out. And then when it did get to the point of reflecting on like characters, I don't know, it just didn't land for me. And I think it's because this version of the Lioness was so all over the place that I didn't feel like it was the same character at all. Like, I like the character growth we get and the character arc we get with the Lioness in this book. I do like that, but that should have happened before she started working with the underground movement and met Gilthaz, because in every other book, when she first meets Gilthaz, she's already part of a resistance movement, and she's already like secretive and has all the information and everything. And so I didn't like the fact that they had an established relationship and then she went through that character arc, because it conflicts with my memory of every other story I've ever read, whether it's a short story or a novel about the two of them. Hey, Justin, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in, man. But in any case, I'm glad that other people enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much. I will never reread it. There's just no real reason to. And it's just one of those stories where it kind of reminds me of back in the day when they did the Heroes series, and they just had like random people that they did a story about, like McQuesta Carthon and stuff like that. That's what this reminded me of. There's literally no reason to write this story. You don't learn anything really new about the Lioness that is germane to anything that she does moving forward into history. It's just a bit of background story developed out into a bloated book. And that's it. So, I don't know. If you really like the character, then definitely give it a read, of course. It was written, I can't even say it was well written, because it was frustrating reading it as they were constantly jumping around and time jumping at random intervals, and it just didn't feel cohesive. It was just constant speed bumps, you know? So that was just frustrating. And I do think that it was written in a way that was a little frustrating to read. The turn of phrase that she was using, just the presentation all in all was a bit frustrating. So I don't know. I don't give these ratings, so I'm not going to give it like a number rating or anything like that. But it wasn't really for me. But anyway, that is it for my review of The Lioness by Nancy Varian Berberick. What do you think of the Lioness's character arc? Do you think they emphasize the slavery aspect of the Qualinesti over the Kagonesti too much? And finally, do you think there is anything special about Elder? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. Thank you to creator patrons Aaron Hardy and D. Robert Handy, producer patron David Galindo, developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz, and all of the YouTube members. I'd also like to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga. I hope you join the celebration. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.